Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that is very near and dear to a lot of the healing practitioners' hearts that we know, because there's a lot of energetic movement and there are a lot of things happening that are calling healers to heal themselves and
Hmm.
calling healers to look at their junk. And part of that is this sense of illness and different health conditions that are arising in people. I mean, there's a lot more to it. And I think Tammy will talk a little bit more about that. But I've been noticing in all the healers around me that there's been a huge number of them that are having dental issues, that are having health conditions, that are having problems that they've never had their whole entire life. So
Hmm.
we are going to dive into that today. So, Tammy, do you
Yes.
want to tell us what prompted this topic for you?
Yeah, so I started to notice, well, I ended off last year feeling pretty good, pretty motivated. I had all these things that were making me feel very supported. All these plans for the year that felt, very aligned, and I was raring to go, and then it was just like bam, I just got hit with this intense weight where it became really bizarre where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to feel from one day to the next. Now, someone listening to that might be like, oh, you might have like a medical issue or something like that. But the reality is I was very aware of some of the things that were coming up when I was in these modes, right? So it was like a lot of fatigue, a lot of things that almost felt like I was getting sick, but I really was never physically ill. Um, and it felt more like an intense fatigue and an intense weight. But what was happening, it was just bringing up these old patterns I would have, that would trigger me to want to do some of these same things that were never super helpful for me. So it was kind of like starting this cycle of oh my gosh, this is all too much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to go hide in my house for a while. And then, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, you have so much stuff to do. What are you doing? And then, this, all these kind of old, icky things were kind of coming up again. But I
Yeah.
noticed them. It wasn't there was a self awareness piece about it where it didn't feel like I'm just exhausted or I really am overwhelmed. It felt like I feel overwhelmed, and now all of these things that I have been dealing with or have dealt with in the past are now springing back up again at a very rapid pace.
Yeah.
But then I started to notice when I was talking to other people, like most of the kind of energy sensitive people that I know, whether or not they work in the healing field or not, um, I mean, most of them in some capacity do some healing, but all the energy sensitive people were experiencing really similar things. Some of them
Yeah.
getting physically ill, but being really confused about it because they're like, I don't know what that was. It didn't feel like a normal physical illness.
Yeah.
I was just exhausted and dragging, and all of these intense feelings were happening. Or, you know, I was all gung ho to meet with this person that had been trying to connect with for a little bit, and that person had the exact same day as me. This just intense day. Like I had this day I got to work, and normally when I get to work, even if I haven't had the best morning, I feel really good when I get there. I was in session and feeling like I needed to cry. It was just like, what is going on? This is kind of feeling of pressure. And um that person ended up having a very similar day, even though we're not in the same space or don't even really know each other. Um, and it was really kind of interesting to hear they were having a similar day, and then other people I work with, and then other people I know that are not even in the same state as me. Like we're all kind of having these similar experiences, but it felt very specific. It didn't feel like a physical illness that we could really pinpoint. It didn't feel like it was a seasonal thing you could really pinpoint. There was just a lot of things that I kind of went through in my head that I have had issues, with in the past, but I was like, maybe it's intensifying this feeling, but I don't think this is where the feeling is coming from. I don't think it's coming from an external
Yeah.
force necessarily right now. But it was just kind of like weight of the world and feeling really discombobulated, but happening at a very rapid pace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I know in
okay,
our
here's a new
household,
thing.
yeah, in our household, we've noticed that there have been a lot of like, we'll be super, super happy and having a great day. And then just all of a sudden it's like, bam, like
Yeah.
you just get slapped down with all of this junk and you start spinning. Like in
Mm-hmm.
your brain, you just start spinning. And it's like all of these things that you thought you'd worked through, and all of these things that are like,
Yes.
you thought that you were rising above finally, and you had
Mm-hmm.
come to a better place, and all of a sudden you're like, I hate this, and this is horrible, and you're just so
Yes.
angry about it, and then you have to stop for a second and catch yourself, and then you're fine again. But it is these ebbs and flows, these
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs that I've been seeing in so many people, and it makes you feel a little bit nutty.
Yes.
Or a lot of bit nutty. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, when I have these moments where I just go into a tailspin, I'm just a bear to deal with. Like my fiance does not, he's like, "Oh, you're fine. Like you're not that bad." And I'm going, "I don't know what you've dealt with in the past, but this is not acceptable behavior for
Yes.
most people." And it's just
Mm-hmm.
you feel I feel a little bit out of control at times when I
Mm-hmm.
get in those moments where my energy is moving so much. And I've been doing some personal ceremonies, some cacao ceremonies lately, and allowing myself to sit and feel my energy. And I've been recognizing that there has been major shifts in my life and in my energetic field over the last few months. And those major shifts, typically, it's like something is triggered in me, and I'm having to look at my issues and look at
Mm-hmm.
my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have this weird tailspin moment that takes me off track, and I start thinking about something else. And I actually was talking to a channeler that I know yesterday, and she channeled for me. And what came up was that those moments where I'm feeling so overwhelmed and so out of control are my guidance system telling me that I'm on track, because my
Mm-hmm.
ego mind is going into overdrive and trying to pull me away from reconnecting to source and like regrounding and rebalancing. Because if I'm in a state of regroundedness and balanced, it's much easier for me to help other people move to that space. And our ego minds don't want to see that happen. Our ego minds want us to stay separate and want us to stay in this little bit of chaotic mode.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, so if you notice that your ego mind is going crazy and you're in this space of franticness or anger or all over the place, it's because you're on track and your ego is trying to take you in a different direction so you don't continue working on your stuff. So you don't keep connecting to source. So it was really interesting to hear her say that. And then to actually go back and start looking at, oh, oh yeah, every time I've been angry like that, I was just on the verge of doing something awesome and getting rid of one of my old belief patterns I didn't need.
Yes.
And then my ego mind said, no, look over here. Jen, look, squirrel. Like, yeah.
I feel that so much, and that makes so much sense because my pattern of distraction or like old, junk coming up or whatever has been triggered a lot too. And it was like right after this kind of intense moment of refocusing and reinvigorating and actually reaching for a long-term goal that I had that's going to be a very meaningful goal. It's going to be really big, and it requires a lot of confidence and a lot of boldness and a lot of faith and all these things that I'm like, okay, I want to be prepared for that. And then it's like the way that it's been processing for me is understanding when I'm in my own way about certain things. And we had oh my gosh, I'm spacing on her name, our financial
Nicole.
Nicole, thank you. So when we had Nicole on, I had also been doing some work around financial stuff too, and it was interesting how much more emotion and kind of traumatic childhood things were connected to that than I really anticipated. So my goal was to do a lot of work around that to be able to allow stuff in. Basically, like, I have big things on the horizon. I don't want to get in my own way or subconsciously stop something from happening unintentionally that I really want and that is
Yeah.
going to be good and meaningful for myself and for others and for just being more connected with the universe and everything that's happening. So it feels very much like, oh, you thought you had that taken care of. Here's another thing. Oh, you thought you had, like you said, here's another thing. You thought
Yes,
this was
again.
done. Here's another thing. But it's happening so rapidly that it can feel very overwhelming. But also, it feels like this is going to be a big year for a lot of people. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, if you are saying that you're ready to deal with all this stuff so you can be prepared for the next thing that's going to come, let's take care of this now. It's like a intense rip the band-aid off over and over again experience where I'm like, okay, I guess this is next,
Yeah.
this is next, this is next. Um, but in that, there have been moments of light and of remembering what it's all for and remembering the vision and the goal and feeling supported. But that's why it almost feels like being on two opposite ends of the emotional spectrum sometimes, like you said, where you're like,
Yeah.
it's great, this is great, I have so many things going for me, and then bam, you're like, something crazy happens, and then you go back to this is great. But even in
Yeah.
like relationships and stuff like that, I do have an astrology app on my phone that goes over different stuff that's happening. From what I understand, there's been a lot of astrological shifting too, or things coming into alignment to push people to shift through things. And apparently 2024 is going to be a big year for a lot of massive growth and abundance for a lot of people, which is
Yay.
great. But that's kind of why I feel like, okay, maybe this is happening to the people who are really sensitive to it, or the people who are prepared for it, maybe is even a good word
Mhm.
for it, who are like, all right, I want to get through this. We're open to it. So we can support the people who are getting there, who are getting to the part of being open to it.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
way the world is going right now, I mean, of course, you're constantly bombarded by all the things that are hard and bad and negative, and people are confused and overwhelmed and feeling uncertain. But oftentimes, before a big shift, everyone gets really uncomfortable. So I'm like, maybe we're
Yeah.
getting uncomfortable first so we can help the people who are going to be uncomfortable next.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why the image that I got in my head about the uncomfortable, it's like when you've gone and eaten way too much at a buffet and your pants are really, really uncomfortable and it makes you think, oh, maybe I should stop eating like this. It's like the super uncomfortable pants pressing you until you make that decision. Oh, I probably shouldn't eat 20 things at the Chinese buffet. Like,
Yeah, that's a thing.
yeah. So one of the things that's been really interesting to me lately, and this came up, we were talking to another practitioner about dental stuff. I have now 6 people that I know that are in the healing profession that are having dental issues, and not just like, oh, they have a cavity. It's like major dental surgeries
Hmm.
where they're having to have teeth extracted and they have abscesses and like all of these crazy things that are showing up in their physical body. And one of the things that I use as a tool all the time is there's this book called Metaphysical Anatomy, and it's it's a medical medium book, not the medical medium book that everybody talks about, but the author is a medical medium and she wrote this book and it lays out all of these different symptoms that you can have in your body and you look it up and then you close the book because you're like, well, crap, I don't want to look at that. I almost cussed. Um, and so I use that book for myself because I recognize that a lot of the time when I start having physical symptoms in my body, it's because there's emotional traumas that I've been storing for a long time.
Mm,
And those emotional traumas eventually have to show up unless you deal with them. So if you haven't dealt with something for a really long time, your body, your physical body is going to start telling you, hey, you need to pay attention to this. You need to take a look at what you've been doing and how you're
mm-hmm,
creating this in your physical body and how you're creating this in your energetic body. And so, looking at all of these people that are having these dental symptoms, it's been interesting because spirits come in for several people that I know talking about the gnashing of teeth and the biting off more than you can chew and all of these things, all of these like old analogies that we use to talk about like the biting off more than you can chew, and it's showing physically in their mouths and in their teeth. Like they've
mm,
taken on too many things and they haven't actually dealt with the issues or haven't allowed themselves space to deal with what was going on in their lives, and they're not saying no to things and they're just continuing to push and continuing to push and continuing to bite off more than they can chew.
mm-hmm,
And it's a way that they have to finally start looking at it, because when you have to say no because you can't talk, or you have to say no because you have to have surgery tomorrow, it forces you into a space of looking at your stuff and finally going, okay, I really do need a break for myself. Oh, I really do need to take care of myself. And
mm-hmm.
so for me, looking at like the physical stuff that's been going on, I was telling Tammy before we started recording that I have started having these intense hot flashes. And I've had so many issues in that realm for so many years. When I was 16, I had my first surgery for like endometriosis and stuff. So I've had issues there. And I had a hysterectomy a few years ago. They left one ovary, one little ovary, to help me to deal with hormones and stuff. And I told my doctor, I think that one ovary has just decided it's done. But I have another practitioner who's like, you know what? It might be that you're trying to shift some things out and your body needs to level out. And so I've been doing some energetic work around that. And I've been looking at the energy every time I have one of these hot flashes, the symptoms that are in my body. And while I think that there might be some of the physical stuff going on, like it, it's a lot for one ovary to try to take care of everything. Well, I think that that's part of it. I think that there's a lot of energy that's been moving through me for so long that my body is finally like, we're gonna turn up the heat a notch and we're gonna burn all this stuff off. It's kind of like a phoenix. Like
Internal smudging.
I'm just gonna like start on fire and burn off all the junk that I don't need from the past anymore so that I can move forward. And so I think that there are times that we are dealing with our human stuff and we have energetically created so much that we do have to deal with things in the 3D, because our bodies are real to us in this moment, even if they are an energetic formation of all these things.
We're
Um,
still having a human experience.
yes, yes, we are energetic beings having a human experience. And I think that we can have both of those things going on at the same time. I think that there can be the energetic component to things and also have these very real physical symptoms that need to be addressed as well.
Mm,
And I've heard from a lot of practitioners, they're like, well, we can heal anything, we can clear anything, you can just set the intention and you can manifest this to change just like that. Well, we've created something in the physical realm. We've created something here. And sometimes we're being called to address it here
Mm-hmm.
and in the energetic realm. So I know that I've heard some people, some of the practitioners that I know that have a lot of shame and a lot of fear around, well, I haven't been able to heal this myself. I haven't been able to take care of this. I'm such a shit show. I'm all over the place. And they kind of are beating themselves up a little bit with all the energy that's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for me, it's taking a look at, oh, well, yeah, I did create something physical. I do need to look at both of these aspects. It's not just that I'm really crappy at fixing the energy of it or that I'm really bad at whatever thing I'm telling myself I'm bad at. It's that
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple layers to everything that we're doing. And we need to look at all of those layers so that we can fully heal rather than just like fixing little teeny tiny pieces and hoping that it solves the whole problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point too, because I do think that it's easy to go into that mode of I know all the things I should do to be able to fix this, but sometimes there is more than one thing to look at, and it, like you were saying with some of the friends who needed to take a little step back and take a break, there is time and place for that too. It's
Hmm.
just like trying to understand how to peel back all the different layers to understand what's happening. What, if you're taking a break, allow yourself to take that break. If you know that at that moment it's not really feeling like a good restful break, it's just feeling like you're avoiding things, well, then you know that it's time to push. It's like taking the time to tap into, try to understand what is my intuition, my instinct, whatever you want to call it. What is that little voice telling me that I am doing or need, or what is it that I need to look at right now in order to maintain my sanity?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
hard to work with other people if you feel insane.
Yes. Yes. It's also really hard to work with people when you are having a really bad hot flash. Anybody who's
I
heard
can
anybody
imagine.
talk about hot flashes before, believe them when they tell you that it's super intense. Because I never knew how much you feel like you're going to burn to death.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, it does not sound pleasant.
no, no. But it's helping me burn something off, so that's a good thing.
I
Like,
like your phoenix analogy. That's a good way to look at it. Um, Burning off whatever it is you need to burn off to
mhm.
come out the other side better.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
I've been really excited that I have used the opportunity to also follow through with some of the plans that I had made prior to this kind of like big intense thing, which I don't always give myself credit for that, right? Because usually I'm like, okay, I did the thing. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
In order to achieve these goals, which is not always a bad quality to have, but also sometimes I need to step back and go, the fact that I set like more hypnosis sessions in motion as a thing to support me to work through whatever I need to work through before this even hit me, and that I followed through with it and I'm doing it, is something that I also need to be like, you know what, that is a win. You're following through with that. So
Yep.
even if you feel like you're not following through with other things that you think you need to be following through with right now, you are following through with the things that are really important, that you
Yeah.
could just say, whatever, screw it, this is just the way life is now.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be more painful for me to know what I had in my at my fingertips and not explore that, um, than it would be to just say, well, this is just not for me right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, that's just instinct, because it's going to be different for everyone's case. Maybe part of your struggle right now is you are doing something that you're striving for that's not feeling good.
Yeah.
But if you're taking any opportunities to have a small win, and
Yes.
I'm doing something to try to support myself, maybe some of those things will come to light a little bit more.
Yeah.
I certainly know some of my loved ones are struggling with that kind of stuck feeling right now because of opposite things, not because they feel like they have something good in their sight that they're working towards and they're struggling with old patterns. It's more like their old patterns are coming up because they are not in the place they should be right now. And they're struggling to even believe that this other thing that's better for them is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that the beginning of the year, we're looking at New Year's resolutions. We're looking at all these things that people just started. And I think now is a really good time for us to take inventory on the things that we have set in motion
Mm-hmm.
and kind of push just a little bit and see which things we can move forward on and which things we need to take a pause on. And I don't think that, like you said, people give themselves enough credit. This time of the year is the time of the year that I usually sit down and I start writing out, okay, I did a really good job with this. I did a really good job with this. And I start
That's
taking
awesome.
inventory of those things and start looking at what I have actually accomplished in the last year and the things that I feel that I need to honestly work on. Because so many times we have these ideas of what society is telling us we need to work on, like
Mm-hmm.
New Year's resolutions. That means I need to go to the gym and I need to lose weight and I need to do whatever, go and get new makeup and do all these things. And really, if we stop and take take a really deep look at the things that we've been working on, you'll see what's most important in your life and
Mm-hmm.
what is really important for you to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, we feel like we have to do certain things. And our system is telling us, our guidance system is telling us to go in a different direction. And when you look at the end of the year, every once in a while, when I look at the end of the year, I'm like, oh, I was actually working on this goal and I didn't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I get really excited because then I'm like 10 steps ahead of the game when it comes to this. And I hadn't even thought about it. But that's where my internal guidance system was telling me to go. Like I was getting rid of all these other things. Yes, I was working on the things that I had to work on, but I was naturally doing these other things that were moving me forward. And when I finally inventoried everything and I finally looked at everything, then I could start working on the other goals that I wanted to accomplish, that my heart was leading me to accomplish. And it didn't feel like such a task anymore. And it didn't feel so um, impossible anymore because I'd already been working on it and I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I could reframe for the next year. It's like, oh, well, I thought this was the goal I was going to work on for this year. But when I look at this, this is where I'm going to start working. And this is what I'm going to start adding in. And so it's really important at the end of the year and at the beginning of the year to really look at those things and see where you are and where your heart is with what you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does help because sometimes we feel like we have to work so hard to clear the old belief patterns, and we feel like we have to work so hard to shift things out of our lives that aren't serving us. But if we truly just listen to what our heart is guiding us toward and what our internal guidance system is moving us toward, we don't have to work on anything. It's like those things naturally start to fall off when we're doing the things that we're feeling called to do, if that makes any sense at all. I went off on a very big tangent.
No, you brought up good points, and this is a good time of year if you're in the northern hemisphere and you're in winter. Winter is a time where everything slows down. Everything is taking a break. Even in the areas where things are warm year round, things are not going to be as fruitful this time of year and stuff like that because it is a time for slowing down, and it's a good opportunity to have some introspective moments with yourself of reassessing what you actually want and kind of preparing yourself for the fresh energy that comes in the
Yep.
spring and the summer when things are really kind of getting going again, so you can accomplish some of those things. And if you're someone who really likes to do any type of ceremonial type things, doing things around the new moon can be super helpful, where it feels like the energy is a little bit enhanced, or doing things specific to your astrological signs, or whatever it is that you want to set up as a habit to support yourself. It's a good time to kind of look into those things too.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes that people get stuck, like you said, in these modes of working really hard towards something that feels like it's not working because you just want to get to that next step or that next step, but like thinking it all the way through. If I get to that next step, so say the step is to get into a higher position in my company, so I'm making more money so I can support myself and my family better, or support my desires better, whatever. What does that feel like though? I mean, do you really want that? Do you really want to be in that role? Is this next thing the thing that you're saying, like, if I only get to that thing, I'm going to be happier? Or
Yep.
is it like, this is a soul fulfilling goal that I have? And yes, I absolutely want to be in that role. Yes, I absolutely think this is going to be the greatest thing I can do. Well, cool. Keep going for that. But there's a lot of people who, if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, there might be a reason. And this is a
Hmm.
good time to sit back and go, is this because I'm working through something to get to this next phase of the things that I truly desire, the things that I really are going to make me feel happy and fulfilled? Because not because I don't feel that way right now, but because this is just the next iteration of my life and myself and my path. Or is
Yeah.
it like, I'm always going to keep on looking for the next thing because I'm not happy where I'm at right now, and that thing is just going to not make me happy either, and I'm going to keep on not being happy because I'm not willing to look at this completely
Yeah.
scary other path
Yep.
that, if I just took that leap, might actually make me happier.
Yeah.
And it can be scary, but it doesn't have to be, like you said, it doesn't have to feel like so much hard work in that you're like going and going towards something and it's not really giving you the results that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so that brought up for me. I just had a conversation with somebody about um the part of us that is always worried about what other people are thinking and what other people think that we should have and shouldn't have. And it's interesting when we look at our goals and we look at where we're going and we look at the beliefs that we have and we see where those things are stemming from. And most of the time, they're stemming from other people's judgments of themselves, other people's judgments of
Mm-hmm.
us, of the world, of whoever or whatever. And we hold those things as true, but really they're just a perspective. They're really just somebody's opinions. And we base a lot of our decisions on that, and we don't end up following our heart. So you talked about that person who might want to move up in their company so that they can support their family and they can do all these things. Well, they might be a fantastic artist who is making this beautiful artwork on the side, and there's people who would love to purchase their artwork,
Mm-hmm.
and that artwork would support their family. Those things would support their family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're trying so hard to move up in the company because the belief that they have is that you have to be working for this company and you have to do this and have a 9 to 5 job and whatever things that we have in our heads, when there's this other thing that could be supporting them, this
Mm-hmm.
other thing that could be giving them exactly what they want, plus taking care of their family. And
Yes.
they wouldn't have to work so hard to get up the corporate ladder or to
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And sometimes we just don't look at those underlying things that are there, those little projects, like I said, the things that I was working on that I didn't realize I was working on that are really bringing me closer to my goal. And it's not until we actually look at them and we start recognizing that sometimes we don't know the answer to everything. And we don't
Right.
have to know the answer to everything. We
Right.
just have to allow ourselves to trust and play and be present so that we can move forward following the path that feels best to us. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we do that, it's much easier to walk through those shit show moments, those
Mm-hmm.
moments where you're like, I hate everything, because you come
Yeah.
back to center much more quickly.
And these rapid fire things that we're going through right now, like I said earlier, it feels like a rip the band aid off thing, but it doesn't feel like it's without a good purpose.
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like I'm just slowly like tormenting myself. So that always feels like you're on the right path when it's that feeling where it's like it's hard work. It's something that you really have to, focus on kind of like experiencing whatever you need to experience, getting the support you need to get in order to get through it. But it doesn't feel like it's hard work for no good reason. It's like this is just a piece of my greater picture of what I want,
Yeah.
which I think would be a really cool thing to talk about next time, maybe as we wrap up for today. Maybe next time we can talk a little bit about like our goals and the larger picture universal things that we see happening in this upcoming year. And maybe other people would be willing to put their comments out about some of the experiences they've had and their goals for the upcoming year, so we can put some of that good energy into everybody's visions.
Yeah. Goal ceremony. Woohoo!
Yes, let's do
Okay,
it.
sweet.
Sounds
Well,
like a good
I'm
way to kind of move us forward.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really excited about this next year, and I'm really excited about following my heart and following my path. And I know that you are too.
I
And I
am.
really hope that everybody who's listening is. So, everybody go and take inventory, recognize what you've done this year and how awesome you are because you're all freaking awesome. Otherwise, you wouldn't be
Absolutely.
listening to us because I know that we only have awesome listeners. So, so I
Right.
hope everybody has an amazing week, and we will see you all on the flip side.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.
Mm-hmm.